My journey often looks like this. I have a problem and then I stress about it a little bit. And then I realize I'm stressing about it, so I ignore it. And then like life happens, the problem comes around again and I realize I can't ignore this anymore. So I put a little bit of effort in. I try and solve the problem. But like, I don't know if everybody else is like this, it's how I am, is I'm going to try and find the least amount of effort, the quickest, easiest solution to the problem. And so I'll try and come up with a few things and it fails. And then I'll probably try and ignore it again. And after a while, I realize, okay, I can't ignore this. And then eventually I'll take it to the Lord. But when I take it to Him, there's something else that tags along. There's an expectation that goes with it. Because now, eventually, I feel, now I'm taking it to the Lord, I'm doing the right thing, and you know what? God's going to answer. Isn't that what He does? He's waiting for me to bring it to Him so that He can answer it. And then He doesn't answer. Not in my time frame, and often nowhere near in the way that I think that He should. Now, isn't that a picture of life? And the reality is that life is not simple. The reality is that we all face internal struggles. We have our own doubts, our own insecurities, areas where we feel that we're not good enough, that we don't measure up, things where we feel I'm not capable of doing this, I feel so out of my depth, and we battle with that inside of ourselves. The majority of people, probably even your closest people, don't even know that you're struggling with those things. Sometimes those problems could be small, they could be big. Sometimes they could be really personal. But sometimes we have to face external struggles. Choices that other people have made. Problems that life throws at us that's completely unexpected. And some of those can also be small, and sometimes they can be overwhelming. Sometimes they can be things that paralyze us. And it's not just our own immediate issues. We eventually start taking on other massive problems. We're so worried about our country. We're worried about where the whole world is heading. We're worried about problems in other countries. And when all of that starts piling on and we eventually take these things to the Lord and He doesn't answer, well, that's when we're left confused. We're left feeling, but what am I supposed to do? And that's what this message is really about. This message is about what God is looking for in this whole process. Because we focus on the solutions. We just want our problem solved. God is focused on the process. He's focused on the eternal things. His focus is on our character and on how we rely on Him, the closeness that we have. And that's what brings in that contention. Because there is this emotional arc that we go through. We have this anticipation when we have a problem. Before the problem is solved, there's an anticipation that has this anxiety connected to it. Like, I wonder what's going to happen and how is this going to get solved and what are we going to do? And then when we're in the process of trying to solve it, there's a pressure that comes with that process. But you know what's interesting in that emotional arc is afterwards, with hindsight, we look back at those things and we don't have that same feeling of being overwhelmed. We don't carry that same anxiety. Hindsight gives us this strange peace. We look back at problems, some of the biggest problems that I've had. I look back at them 5 years on and I'm like, yeah, it was tough. I'm not saying it was easy, but I don't feel the same way that I did in that moment. And that's important, and we have to pay attention to that. Because when we can see that in the middle of these struggles, what God is doing, He's not saying, I'm just going to solve all your problems. He's saying, come closer. Let's sort this out. Come. Let's wrestle through this. And when we can wrestle with our problems with the Lord, that's when we can see that close contention that we have, that's what He's looking for. Because wrestling is not a passive thing. Wrestling is something that requires effort. Wrestling is something that sometimes can be frustrating. It's definitely tiring. Wrestling is something that you have to do up close and personal. And when you do that, not only do you learn a lot about your opponent, but it's incredible how much you learn about yourself. You discover your own limitations. You discover your own strengths and, importantly, your own weaknesses. And it's in that process that when we can go to the Lord and we can say, well, you know what? I'm confused. Do you know what? I don't get this. Do you know what? I'm angry. Like, I wish that this was different. And we can take that to him and be honest about it. And that's what he is looking for. And the Lord says in that moment, he's saying, but that's what I'm calling for. Because we can't sort this out from over there. You have to come to me. We have to sort this out together. And we have to be close. So don't stand over there and hold on to your pretenses. Don't stand over there and hold on to your pride and your self-sufficiency and try and solve these problems on your own. Don't stand all the way over there with all of the barriers that you have created, where you feel that you can't approach me. And sometimes those barriers are ones that we've made ourselves, where we feel inadequate. We feel, why would God even care? And that's just not what he says. He says, there's nobody who loves you more. There's nobody who wants to help you more. Sometimes those barriers are religious barriers that have been created. Barriers that say that we can't go to God with our emotions. We can't say that we're angry with him. We can't voice our doubts and our fears. And God says, I'm not worried about those. Just bring them to me and we can sort them out. And when we're able to do that, we can see that this isn't just a passive like giving up. Wrestling requires a real active energy, and that's what makes it so different. That's how you sort stuff out, because it's in that honest, raw process when you're able to say, but I don't want to. I don't want to do this. I don't understand this. I don't want life to be like this. And in that honesty, when you can do that, that's when change takes place. It's in that brokenness. It's in that rawness. It's where we meet the limits of our own understanding that we can then see, okay, so God has something else in store here. And that's the beautiful picture that we have, where Jacob wrestles with the angel of the Lord. And in this picture, so Jacob, one of the forefathers of the nation of Israel, it's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jacob was a twin, so Jacob and Esau. And Jacob stole the birthright from Esau, and Esau was mad and wanted to kill him, so Jacob ran away. And many, many years later, Jacob is now returning to his homeland, but he's afraid because he hasn't sorted out the issues with his brother, and he doesn't know what's waiting for him on the other side of the river. So what he does is he sends his entire family over the river with all of his possessions, and he stays alone on the banks, on the other side, in the safety. And in that moment, the angel of the Lord comes to him. And the angel of the Lord was the Lord Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. And the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 32 that Jacob wrestles with the angel of the Lord throughout the whole night until dawn. And when the sun comes up, Jacob is holding on to the angel of the Lord, and he says, I won't let you go until you bless me. And what does the Lord do? He doesn't solve his problems. He doesn't say to Jacob, okay, I've sorted your brother out. The family feud is over. Your problem is fixed. What the Lord does is he changes Jacob. And he says to him, your name is no longer going to be deceiver, which is what Jacob meant. He says, now your name is going to be Israel, those who wrestle with God. And from that moment on, Jacob leaves that wrestling, not with his problem fixed, but he leaves that wrestling a changed person. His character is changed. And that's what God is after. Not just solutions. He is after the process. He wants to know that we are going to trust him in that process. That the outcomes are secondary. He's after something else that is far greater. But it's only in the wrestling that we get to truly discover our own limitations and, more importantly, God's limitlessness. That he is able to do things and to solve things and to change things in ways that we could never even imagine. And he does that when we are closer. That when we come to him And we spend that time in that honesty with him and just saying, but I don't get it, Lord. Like, I wish that this could just be so different and that things could change. Well, that is when the Lord then says, but look what we're going to do. Because through this wrestling, you're going to emerge even stronger. You're going to emerge with this experience. You're going to emerge from this more developed. And most importantly, you're going to rely on me even more. Because from God's perspective, he doesn't only have hindsight, he has eternal hindsight. He sees a much bigger picture. So when he approaches all of the struggles and the problems that we have, imagine if you could approach your problems with hindsight that you have, that hindsight that you're familiar with. Now, imagine how God approaches those with eternal hindsight. And then you realize why he's not that worried about the problems. He really is more concerned about the character of who we are and how we are going to grow in him. Because when we wrestle with him, well, that's when we can finally wrestle with ourselves enough to be able to let go of the things that we should let go of. And God has given us these beautiful examples to help us with this. So that it's not just this distant example. He's given us one of the closest relationships that we have, and that's found in marriage. So when God gave Eve to Adam, he said, I'm going to give you a helpmeet. And that word helpmeet is a very interesting word. It really means a complementary adversary. Not somebody that you lord over, but somebody that comes next to you, that you strive with. And that's what a healthy relationship is. It doesn't avoid conflict. It doesn't ignore the problems. It says we are secure enough and we love each other enough to be able to sort these things out. And so we are going to strive against each other and become stronger through this. And what a beautiful picture that is. Another example that God gives, and I'm grateful for this example because it is one that speaks to our religious mind, where Paul the Apostle, who's arguably the greatest Christian who ever lived, somebody who gave his entire life for the work of the ministry, where Paul goes to the Lord in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and he says, Lord, please, on 3 separate occasions, he goes to him and he pleads with him. And he says, please, will you take this away? And we don't know what it was. He called it his thorn in the flesh, something that really disturbed him. Please, will you take this away? And God answers, not in the way that Paul was expecting. And he says, I'm not going to take it away because my grace is sufficient for you. It's enough because in your weakness, my strength is made perfect. That you will rely on me and I will do great things through you. And that's exactly what happened with Paul. It's not removing the problem or sorting it out. It's developing our character through that. Where that dependence and we become used to that wrestling with the Lord. And we realize that that is the greatest thing that we could ever have. Is to be able to have the opportunity to work these things out. Where he says, bring your brokenness. Bring your unanswered problems and all of the things that you don't understand and your unfinished character and draw close to me and be honest and come and wrestle with me. And when you do that, you see that God isn't looking for a quick fix to a problem from a distance. That's not how he wants us to live this life with him. He wants us to come near and to wrestle, to bring those raw questions, your tight chest and your tired heart. And to come to him and to say, Lord, I don't understand this. Like I've tried everything. And I need you. I need you to help me with this. And in those moments, that's where we have to hold on to God's promises, to surrender the outcome and to trust the process, to stay there to see what is it that God is going to do through this, not just what the end of this is. So whenever we look for the solutions, God is looking for that closeness that he knows is going to change us in the most important area. And often when we've wrestled with him, we wrestle with the Lord and we come out on the other side and we realize, wow, the solution that I wanted when I came into this I don't want that anymore. Because just like Jacob, I've changed. I'm different. And now I can approach life differently. And now I know how close the Lord is with me. And I know that He's not going to leave me. And no matter what the problem is that is in front of me, that together we've got this. Because it really is His strength and not mine. And through that process, that God is doing the most important work. Not out there in the world fixing problems. He's doing the most important work in me. And that's the invitation. It's trust Him, to be honest enough with Him, to be close to Him, to wrestle with Him. Because something will change. But more importantly, someone will change.